I was really surprised to see the Crap Gamer America First reply to my tweet. My tweet said PlayStation gained 30% rev share. Xbox gained 70%. PS Fanboys didn't do nothing, gains 30%. It's better. The math, though. Some people even said to me, this is how, Valve makes all this money. Apparently, they do nothing and they make all this money. But I'm like, guys, why do I have to have PlayStation hiding behind Valve every single time or hiding behind Nintendo? For instance, Valve is not subsidizing hardware. PlayStation is, was, isn't, was. And when I say that, I'm not being silly. I'm actually being quite real. For instance, if you look at Matthew Humphrey's article where he talked about the hardware subsidy, he says in August of 2021 that Sony says that it no longer sells its PS5, it's $499 PS5 at a loss. Interesting. It's been able to secure enough chips to hit 22 million console sales targets this fiscal year. Okay. But in the same article, Bloomberg reported that Sony said that they made the announcement alongside raising its fiscal year profit forecast. However, there's still some work to do to make the cheaper digital edition of the PS5 profitable. So would that not essentially mean, you know what, let me read the rest of the statement. It says, right now, Sony says any loss made on that console is being offset through peripherals and continued sales of the PS4 console. It may also be helped by the fact that Sony is making a lighter version of the PS5 digital edition. So somewhere, somehow, some of these consoles made their way out into the ether at losses. Right now, PlayStation is around 90 million sell in, I don't know. But at the end of the day, if even a fraction of those consoles were sold at a loss, that's still millions and millions of dollars that have actually reached a loss for PlayStation. So when people say they do nothing free and clear, they make 30%, that's not entirely factual. Some people are even saying, well, I'm glad you just discovered that consoles are sold at a loss. They're calling me idiot and stuff, but all I'm doing is I'm pointing out the reality that from not just the technicality, from a fiscal perspective, their notions were just straight up trud. Straight up. But the Crap Gamer's response was very interesting. He says Microsoft funds the studios. Pays for the ports and development. Pays for any advertising. To be honest, a lot of games they've put on PlayStation probably lost them money. Hi-Fi Rush. Pentiment. Gears of War. How can Gears of War have lost them money? The game already made all its money back. You know what? Grounded. Indiana Jones. Doom the Dark Ages. Sony gets 30% free, clear and free. And this is what makes it so interesting, because somewhere, somehow, you are aware of how much money these games lost, but you're not aware of how much money these consoles lost. Now, these consoles were sold in 2020, 2021. Around the same time, PlayStation has sold around 10 million units. But somewhere around all of this, material costs went up. Did you all remember? Cost of everything started to rise. At the time, the so-called profitability of the consoles, PlayStation basically kept quiet. It wasn't until recently that they came back to start talking about selling the consoles at profit. But for 2 years there, if not 3, they never mentioned anything about selling the consoles about profit. Even Destin one time made a video and said it seemed like PlayStation had backed away from that statement. So when we look at it, there are these PlayStation consoles that entered the wind that cost PlayStation money. But nobody knows what these monies are. But somewhere, somehow, without sales, without data, without anything, the Crap Gamer is already aware of how much money Indiana Jones has lost. Or at least that Indiana Jones has lost money. Or that Doom Dark Ages has lost money. Or perhaps that Grounded has lost money. Or Hi-Fi Rush lost money. Or Pentiment lost money. When all we have right in front of us is to go ahead and pretty much see this. And you know what's crazy, ladies and gentlemen? This whole conversation has been like this for gaming for such a long time. The Crap Gamer, his timeline is full of him claiming that Xbox has destroyed their console. They're about to leave their business and blah, 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 blah. But nobody really does realize that Xbox significantly took L's on selling those units at a loss. The whole subsidize the console effort is crazy. That's why you bought the PS5 Pro for $750, a barely noticeable upgrade for about $250 to almost $300 more. And many of you celebrated it. You said it was for the enthusiast. PlayStation continues to wind y'all's brains and your minds like it has something special, some kind of a juju over you. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And y'all continue to say some of the strangest things. Like, did anybody not go ahead and say, you know what? Is PlayStation actually, in a sense, taking on any cost here to build this platform? Everybody is taking on cost. Even Valve is taking on cost. But they're not taking on these kinds of losses that PlayStation is actually taking on. So when Valve makes a 30%, this is why Valve's average profits seems like in some cases it's higher than PlayStation. This is why PlayStation's expenses are out the wazoo. Because not only were they taking losses, they were spending significant amounts of money making these big picturesque games that are supposed to make you come buy these discounted consoles. Has nobody ever connected the dots? Why must we do all the hard work for PlayStation fanboy talking points community? Like, I'm just so shocked that we literally have to sit here and sometimes we almost have to think for you guys. It's crazy. And it's not like you guys can't reach these, conclusions yourselves. You can, but you refuse to. You're busy fanboying. You are. You didn't pay attention to the $315 million that was spent on development of Marvel Spider-Man 2. Only the Lord knows how much they spent on Miles Morales. At the time they had sold 10 million units, they were celebrating 6.5 million consoles, 6.5 million units for Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. In 2021, did you guys not see it? Look at it. Let me show you. Look at PlayStation's business. It's there for everybody to see. Look at this. When Business Wire, Berkshire Hathaway Company, was talking about this, they said that as of November 12, 2020, Miles Morales from Spider-Man Insomniac Games has sold more than 6.5 million copies since launching. So this was, since release, from November 2020. So this article was written in July. So within 7-8 months, the game had sold about 6.5 million units. But what we didn't know, though, is that Marvel fees are insane. So again, all this picturesque pizzazz was all designed to blast pixie dust into your face so that you ran and went and bought the console. Many of you don't realize that I was actually one of those fools. I drove to a different state because there were no PS5s available. And I went and bought me a PS5 thinking that this PS5 generation was going to be something special. Thankfully, I was already on PC only to realize that this thing was just a joke. It's a joke. And the funny part is, many of you keep saying this nonsense. You don't realize that I actually have more investment on PlayStation than I actually ever did on an Xbox console. You don't realize that. So when I'm calling it out, the best you guys can do is to hurl insults at me or to call me an idiot, call me stupid, call me foolish. But these things aren't working on your, they're not working in your favor. In fact, they strengthen my resolve as now I smell blood in the water and then realize that you probably feel or you probably sense that I'm actually on the right track. And this didn't do nothing crowd. You've got to really tweak your, you got to tweak your, you got to tweak your, your talking points. They're not helping you guys. They really are not. If you don't tweak your talking points, everyone's going to continue to then look at the joke that the so-called PlayStation talking head community is. You all have got to tweak this thing, and you will. At some point, the reality will dawn on you. Before I leave you, let me throw some numbers into a calculator. Let's just say, in all of the millions of consoles that PlayStation has sold, 5 million of those consoles were sold at a $200 loss. That's about $1 billion lost. Okay, eat that 30%.